Hey, welcome back everybody. Welcome back to my channel, AmusedJester, and my name is Junior, and we're going to be reviewing today Mattel's new Masters of the Universe Chronicles toy line. This is the character Skeletor from the movie. And one of the very first things I noticed when this was being promoted was the fact that it was using, look at this windswept cape. Well, the cape has this one. So when I first saw it, I was asking Toy Shiz, who was the first one to show this that I saw, was confirming that it was not a fabric, and he said it was not fabric, and trying to confirm was there two types of capes. And he wasn't able to answer because I think he was being given the runaround, but this cape does not exist apparently in this figure as confirmed by Dan the Pixel Man. Anyway, let me go ahead. Again, this is a window packaging, and I'm actually my first surprise in this one is noticing that his fingernails are painted. All right, okay, let me discuss that further, but let me go ahead and take it out of packaging and look at the figure closer. All right, the figure is now out of packaging. One of the things that's definitely stuck out immediately is you notice it's kind of apart. That's because one of the hands fell off immediately as I was pulling him out of packaging, and the head fell off as well. So I'm not really encouraged by that because it's telling me that, yeah, the connection with a ball joint is very loose and easily pops off. I believe this is the hand that came with the figure. I had the same experience with the He-Man figure, and I thought maybe I wasn't putting it on properly, but now seeing how easy it pops off, you know, then maybe it's not my fault why it's coming off immediately. So during the unpacking process or examination of the boxes, I noticed that the fingernails were painted, and that is a happy surprise for me because I thought it wasn't going to be. Like I said, I'm now beginning to, can't help it but compare the toy products that I'm buying with Nacelle Toys' Star Trek line, because they're doing, I think, a good job with their figures. Most of the points I wanted to make with this particular toy line I already did with the He-Man figure. I'll do a quick summary in the fact that I'm not thinking of collecting this line at all. I just did it because I wanted to see what the possible articulation will be in the DC Collector's Edition line from Mattel. So I bought, and it's a He-Man figure, it's a Masters of the Universe figure. So I could at least support it by buying He-Man, Skeletor, and BattleCat, which is what I went and did. I will tell you right now, from my impressions of He-Man, the figure over here, I will not be expanding the roster of this one to the rest of the line. I won't be getting Tila, Man-at-Arms, or anybody else. I believe I might do that with the Core 5.5 for two reasons. First, it's only $10. This is $27. The core is only $10. The Core 5.5 line actually is about the same height as their Origins or Cartoon Collection line, so it's possible to squeeze that into that line. But more importantly, that $10 price point basically allows me to devote $100 to that collection line. $100 you might think is a lot of money, but unfortunately in this day and age, this is almost $30. So that basically means that $100, actually, let me put it this way, this is over $50, and the BattleCat is over $50. This is what I got. These three alone is $100. Comparatively, $100 will get me at least around 9 figures of the 5.5. 9 figures is almost the entire basic core collection characters of characters in the He-Man Masters of the Universe line, right? I can get 5 villains, 5 heroes. Anyway, so like I said, I won't be expanding much on this one based on the He-Man figure. Now, I will point out that as I've seen on the on the He-Man figure, because he's just sporting a regular flesh tone, you don't really see a lot. It's just flesh tone, even though that still bugs me over here. With the Skeletor figure, you do get a sense of washes here in the crevices, so it adds to the detail of the toy. And this is not just, as you can see, it's not just basic black or purple. It's actually washed in. And see, here's a comparison. Like this one seems like it's just basic paint. The paint job on this one is a lot less intricate than what's going on here. Even though technically it should be referencing to the same material. Let me get it close together. Oh, maybe not. It's a different shade as well. I mean, sculpt-wise, the detail is good. Like, look at that face. There is something that was, I think, what's going on with the individual Core 5.5 Skeletor, where it has a lot more paint application and a lot more deeper shade of colors inside the skull. And this one is missing. I'm referring to, let's see, I don't know what you would call this, not mandibles, this part right here. I believe in the core individual line, this is in black. Nice beady red eyes. This being part of the sculpt and not part of the cape allows it the movement of the head. But let me see, it looks like maybe this is not properly positioned again. It's the same thing that happened with the He-Man. Like it's not a whole lot. It doesn't really add a whole lot of range. I don't know why they have this on two different, oh, because of they have that painted because this does have an articulated jaw. And if you had not painted that, that will be blue. So that's a good consideration. Here, now he can open up his mouth wider. I like the separation of this one. A lot of detail on the cape. It reminds me of the old McFarlane style. I just don't like the broken part of this one. Huh. I like the style of the cowl. I like it better than what we see on Masterverse. It's more realistic. I like the design of the figure. It's a more sort of updated, but this seems like really thin. I like the more chunkier look of the Masterverse or the old style. And I've messed around with the articulation in this one. The butterfly joint is nice, but it doesn't really add a lot of range of movement. I wonder, okay, so let's look at this one. Okay, so this actually has better, the tightness of the joint is better in this one than on He-Man. He-Man's torso was getting to the point of almost floppy, and the thigh is actually floppy on He-Man. This one is not, but it's almost beginning to feel like it could be. So yeah, I feel like their technique on the drop down joint of the thigh needs to be done better, because it's tight now, but I can already feel it loosening. But so far it's kind of good. This figure, the way it feels right now, feels a lot better than the He-Man one. The joints on the ankle are still as evident. It doesn't necessarily have a good surprise as to the touting of the deluxe articulation. I mean, they call it deluxe articulation, Mattel does, but for me, this is just a regular type of articulation. The type of articulation that I've been used to with Hasbro's G.I. Joe Classifieds. And if Hasbro has been doing that for years, I consider that as regular. This is just regular for me. So you can market it all you want, it still is regular. That's a nice look though. So I almost feel like I don't own any Mattel WWE figures, but I almost feel like they've been doing this the entire time. So I don't know what they're so proud of. The impressiveness of the figure, of the way it looks, is not an accomplishment by the toy company, but rather by the designer of the character in the movies. So I'm impressed with this one, but I would say I am more impressed with how the character is designed. I did just notice that the eyes of the, what did he call this? I forgot the name of this, Havoc staff, are actually a separate piece from the skull and is in some sort of translucent plastic that gives it depth. And I do like the paint application that's being used in this one. You know, I like the fact that they're actually paying attention and giving some sort of paint application on the accessories to give it that look outside of being just a simple cast toy accessory. You know, it gives it a little bit more weight. Now this figure, the one that's preventing it from looking backward is the cowl, and as you saw, it just popped off. I wonder if it's possible to remove this head from the cowl. It is not. There is some sort of connecting joint in the back that's very, very thick all the way to the skull. You probably can, but only if you were to warm it up and cut it away. Value-wise, this is $27, and I don't see $27 in this one. Sorry, Mattel. But to be honest, I'm already complaining at the $27 price or $28 price range of G.I. Joe Classifieds, and they come with a ton more of stuff than what you're bringing in this one. In fact, here's one of the more recent G.I. Joe Classified lines. I believe this is $27, $28. And look at how much stuff is coming with this guy compared to Mattel. Now, you might say, well, I mean, Skeletor doesn't have all that kind of equipment. True, but if we're just thinking about giving out accessories per count, well, then why not give us, instead of just an extra pair of hands, why not give us more hands? Just to equal up the count. Not necessarily, I'm not saying I want more hands, but yeah, sure, like a pointing hands maybe. A pointing hand like that would be good for Skeletor. I like the fact that they added the jaw, but okay, if you don't want to give us more hands, why not a separate head sculpt? Why not a separate head sculpt that doesn't have the cowl attached to this one? Or a different style of cowl? Or maybe give him another sword, like the Violet version of the sword. I know it's not going to be movie accurate, but at this point, if you're asking us to pay $27, make it worthwhile. So what I'm going to do in terms of value in this one is I will give it a 10. I did not buy this to add to my collection. I bought it out of curiosity to see what the DC line is going to be, and because I love Masters of the Universe to the point where I wanted some sort of representation of He-Man and Skeletor at least in my toy line, but this is going to be off to the side. This does not fit anywhere at all in my Masters of the Universe collection. Does not fit in Masterverse, and it does not fit in the 5.5 core line. By the way, even though this is being touted as 6.5, this is closer to 7 inches. So it does not fit with a regular G.I. Joe, which is at 6 inches. As you can see, I've compared this with my He-Man review as well. It does not fit with the Masterverse, as you can see, because Masterverse is not actually 7 inches. It's actually closer to 7.5 inches. Yeah, it does not fit anywhere in my collection at all. But I got He-Man and Skeletor out of curiosity. I got BattleCat because if you have He-Man, you might as well get BattleCat at the most. I am not, from my review of He-Man and Skeletor, I am not planning on expanding any more from this toy line. I gave it $100, and this is $50, and the other two figures basically around $55, $57. So that's the $100 fund that I allocated for this particular toy line, and it wasn't not impressive enough for me to say, you know what, I'm gonna get some more. Let me go ahead and open it up, and let's take a look and see what we've got with this figure. All right, so here it is out of packaging, and that's basically all that came with this figure. $55 for a BattleCat and everything. Now, some reviewers have compared this to the Masterverse BattleCat, which I have, but I'm not going to go ahead and do that because, to be honest, it kind of looks the same, feels the same. And I feel like, I know that when they were reviewing it, they pointed out differences. But to be honest, it seemed like they had to go kind of really deep just to point out the differences. It's about the same size as the Masterverse BattleCat. The design of this head is actually very similar to the Masterverse BattleCat rather than the old BattleCat. So I just don't feel the need to pull out my, maybe I will, I don't know. It's a big thing. So I do know that if I remember, my BattleCat from Masterverse does not have ratchets, and because it is the same, I could have easily said, well, why not just use the Masterverse BattleCat? Well, which I think I actually have an extra of somewhere. But every one of my He-Man has their own BattleCat. My cartoon collection He-Man has his BattleCat. My Masterverse has his BattleCat. My Motu Classics has his BattleCat. And I feel like my Chronicles should have their own BattleCat. I just want to point out too, if you look at the eyes, that's kind of impressive. The eyes are actually, it feels like it's like a clear acrylic. So if you look, like the eyeball seems like it's following you. And you're not seeing it on camera, but that is actually a clear crystal that's been embedded or into that mold face. See how the eyes are just following you? That's because of how they designed that eye. That's impressive. That's the one thing that really jumps at me. These are removable. It's an interesting design on this one. So you tab it and then it slips underneath. That's interesting. I feel like that's a very, very well done design. I feel like the Masterverse is actually quite awkward and pops off easily. Very nice, intricate design on the saddle. So that's cool. Even the tail design is very similar to the Masterverse. Honestly, you know what? Okay, I'll go ahead and take my Masterverse out. I apologize for the dust, but yeah, my place is dusty, and I'm actually going to be moving my Masterverse collection to my new collection. You know what I kind of noticed? It feels like the Masterverse is actually bigger. Well, it should be bigger, right? Because Masterverse is a bigger line than this one anyway. Now, when I was talking about the straps on this particular harness, and I noticed it, and it impressed me. I was correct. It is impressive because look, this is the old style strap that they used on the Masterverse, and this feels kind of less reliable. But actually, it goes underneath too, and then it tabs in. So maybe it's the same way, but it doesn't have the strap that goes in over here. This design is more secure, and this is also just lying down on here. There's really nothing to connect it to, and I feel like this is doing the same way, where it's just like not really hugging the face of the lion or the tiger, so it comes off easily. There had to have been a way to conform mold it to the head. What the heck is going on with this thing? Is this the one that's failing all the time? So there's a way to mold the inside of this one so it conforms much better to the head. I feel like this is a failure where it just easily pops off. Come on. They should have learned enough of Masterverse. So is this a different mold? Yes, it is. You can see the musculature in this one is different and everything. So just take my word for it. It's a different mold. It's a different cat. I can see now though that I'm not sure which I like more than these two, but I noticed that Masterverse actually has this painted while theirs is not. Surprisingly, from what I've seen with, for example, with Skeletor, where I'm impressed with the paint application of this one is actually quite boring. The harness doesn't have any type of paint whatsoever. This has no paint whatsoever. The tiger barely has any paint because it's just the stripes here, and this, and this. The most impressive thing about this lion, honestly, is the eyeballs. So all these are types of articulation. We already had it with Masterverse. So there's nothing particularly interesting about this, except again like the soft ratchets going on. With the soft ratchet, it's actually able to hold this weird contortion going on. Does not have any ratchets here on this ankle joint. And one of the things I'm noticing with this particular line, it seems to be very prone to have very loose joints. And I'm only saying that being very prone to very loose joints because I only have 3 figures, but 2 out of the 3 figures have joints that are loose. And with that, I'm going to say the line is prone to having loose joints. Yeah, loose joints, particularly on a figure like this that's kind of heavy, is really bad because this is the same problem I have with my Motu Classics. I think BattleCat or Panther, and it always irritated me that I could not get them to stand properly. It's a nice face though. Is this worth $50? No, God no. Maybe $35. I definitely overpaid for it. So this one, I'm gonna give it a value of 8, easy 8. 8 being a negative review at this point. Anything below 10 is a negative review at this point. Because 10 is just the basic standard where I got everything that I expected, what I paid for. Not saying satisfied with it, it's just okay, you know. And the reason for that is the lack of paint, looseness of the joints, the head popping off. The fact that the eyes I am impressed with is I probably, if I wanted to, kind of would have stretched it up to a 9, but I'm really quite disappointed with the lack of paint, because if you have this type of a paint job with some of your figures and then this one was sacrificed, it stands out of the line. It really does. And this thing not being secure, that they didn't mold it so that it's secure in the head. Yeah, there's not enough of an improvement from the previous BattleCat to justify buying this. In fact, I would even almost say that they've gone backwards. The ratchets at certain joints would have been impressive if it had not suffered from loose joints in certain parts. I will say this though, if you want a more impressive BattleCat, why don't you just get the Massiverse one? That's probably out on Ross. I think I got my extra one at Ross for like, I don't know, $12 or something. Because it's designed to be on a bigger scale, that BattleCat is even more impressive to look at. Actually, let me change camera positions and I'll pose this whole thing and I'll do a review of the entire collection that I have in my possession. All right, so I'm back again, and this is basically going to be kind of difficult to show. You can see that the BattleCat from the Massiverse is slightly bigger. So let me put on He-Man, and then I'll let you guys judge to see what's more impressive to look at on which BattleCat. And while I do this, we'll kind of talk about the line as a whole. I feel that as a... Oh, I realize now that it doesn't even have a thigh cut, because as I'm posing this, it's just getting like difficult. It's going to be difficult. That's why they made his saddle narrower than what I'm seeing, because this thing cannot... Doesn't have anything to hold on to, like unlike this one where it has this. God forbid this guy jumps and he impales himself on this. I'm dying, BattleCat. You killed me. That's that. Here he is. So look at this guy. Now really he's impressive. That's a big BattleCat. Surprisingly, he can still sit on the saddle, which, as you can see, is much wider than this one. This one looks like an anorexic cat. Yeah, I know this has a derpy looking head, but once you put on his armor, yeah, interesting. This definitely lowers the value down now, maybe to 7. Anyway, my value for this thing as a whole is I feel like they failed. This is a failure of a collection. For the price point that they're putting out at $27. For $27, I feel like you needed more accessories. For He-Man, even though it's not part of the movie and not true to the movie, put a shield on, put an axe on, give it a little bit more, give a stand. Stands should be a standard for this collection, just to add more to the accessories. For Skeletor, I probably would have recommended a separate head sculpt. Just to make that $28 flesh out a little bit more. The looseness of the joints is a problem, to be honest. And this thing with He-Man, where I was given a different part on this one, that's a QC problem. I've never even actually had a QC problem like that with Mattel, so that's kind of interesting to see. What else? Where else did they fail? For this particular figure, the lack of paint application on the harness is bad. For deluxe articulation not to have thigh cuts, that's a bad failure. As a whole, I would probably give it as an 8 because the price is way too high for what you're giving us. The other point of failure is that there is no collection that this thing fits on. It does not fit in a 6-inch Marvel line, G.I. Joe line figure. And I'm only saying that, why am I fighting on that? Is because you moved it out of Masterverse. You moved it out of this collection. What is this collection fitting? I thought it would at least fit the 6-inch lines, kind of 1/12 scale. So at least you could put your Masterverse with the G.I. Joe line. It does not fit in there. So that's a fail. I'm going to lower the value down from 8 to 7 because of that. You might say, well, once you build out the whole line or the whole collection, you'll have a line where it fits. You're talking about spending $28 per figure in order. And how many figures are we talking about? You need Man-at-Arms, you need Tila, Roboto. Who else is in there that I've seen? You definitely need, for the villains, Evelyn, Sorceress. You need Evelyn, Beastman, Pigman, or Pigman. Has that been announced? No. Trapjaw. I'm trying to remember in the Chronicles. I know that in the core 5.5 it has a lot more range of characters than in this one. Yeah, you're talking at least 10. You're talking about over $300 worth of funding just to kind of fill it out, and that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. At least for me. I'm just saying that for me, I wasn't even interested in getting this one. If this had fit the G.I. Joe line, it would have been better, because then I can put it in my G.I. Joe line or Marvel line. I hope when they said their DC is going to be 6 inches, I really, really hope they do make it fit the Marvel Legends, because that will be a big plus. That's a plus that I'm hoping for. This is not what I'm looking for. So this review for the BattleCat is a value of 8, negative for me at this point. It didn't have enough paint application that I saw in the figures. It had the loose joints that I saw on one of the figures. It seems narrow. It doesn't seem majestic enough. Yes, the face is more ferocious on this one and this, but this has more presence than this. Yes, that has more sharper detail than this. But this is now at Ross, or you can see this at Ross, or I saw this at Ross at like $20 or something like that. And this is 50. And it doesn't come with anything at all. As the line value, like I said, I'm gonna value it at 7. It failed in a lot of things that I was hoping for. And it has no place in my collection. I don't have any place in my collection that's close to 7-inch, but not 7-inch, not 6 inches far, and so yeah, it doesn't fit in my Masterverse, doesn't fit in my cartoon collection, doesn't fit anywhere in my collection. And I'm at the point where I need to figure out where to put my collection, so I can't add any more lines, so for me it's a fail at this point. But it might not be for you. For you, this might be a good line. It all depends on your perspective. This is just my viewpoint as where I am as a collector. So you have to keep that in mind. My collection is expansive. It's a lot of stuff, and I've taken over a second room for my display room, and that display room is already jam-packed. Just for my old collections alone that I boxed up and stored. So if I'm gonna get a new collection line, it needs to be something that fits within that universe of collection, and this doesn't have that. So, or at least I'm not willing to spend any more money for a collection that has flaws, or a collection production that has flaws, I should say. Anyway, that's it for my review of the BattleCat from the Masters of the Universe Chronicles film line, and my review of the entire collection as I have. And keep this in mind, I only have Skeletor, He-Man, and BattleCat for this collection, and it's just no, no, thank you. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you guys on my next review. Bye.